Hi and welcome. This is the gaming and esport investor, and today I'm lucky enough to have Hans Axet with me. We did a video together. I guess it was about half a year ago or something, maybe a little bit more. And Hans had a fantastic take on EG7. You can find the video in the channel, and it's been doing exactly what Hans said. So welcome here, Hans. Great to have you back, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, you've been one of the best performing stock pickers that I think I heard of during the last year here. I know a lot of people who did very well, but I think you sort of beat them all. Could you share a little bit of how it's been for you?
Yeah, this last year has been incredible. And there are some few key factors for that, and one is of course EG7, and hopefully it will also be Zordix.
Yeah, so Zordix is in, what's it in now, and where did you buy it?
I started buying it at 12 SEK, and I was in an earlier capital raise in October. And since that, I have raised my position like 2 or 3 times. So I'm heavily invested in Zordix right now.
How much of your portfolio is in Zordix right now?
There's some discussion about my risk management, but it's 90% of my portfolio right now.
Oh, okay, so you have more than one stock. That's diversified.
Yeah, exactly.
That must be the definition there. Yeah,
exactly.
So, Hans, could you tell a little bit about yourself, who you are, and
Yeah, of course. My name is Hans, as you said, and I live in southern Sweden. I'm 35 years old, and besides doing this, I'm a teacher in physical education, and also in Swedish for foreigners.
So has it always been gaming, and would you consider yourself a value or a growth investor? I think that's always interesting these days.
Yeah, it has always been gaming at start.
Yeah, it's quite interesting about Sweden that that Sweden has kind of been a hub for gaming stocks, and also a hub for iGaming. So a lot of Swedes are actually pretty good on gaming and iGaming, I guess. And sort of in Sweden now, EG7 that we talked about and that you introduced us to was this build a company model where you acquire smaller game studios, and I call it alchemy. So you buy something, you buy an asset, and the minute you bought it, it gets into the group and it's worth more, and that's kind of the game plan. So in Sweden, there's been Embracer, which is sort of being the big company. I think it's bigger than Ubisoft and maybe Take-Two now in size. It's very big, at least. And then there was EG7, and there was Stillfront as well. So and they're acquiring stuff, and it gets worth more, and then they use the increasing share price to raise more money and acquire more. So do you think? I sort of what do you think of this business model? Do you think it's durable, or is there any risks?
Of course, there are risks, but and also we need to see if it's sustainable in the long term. But I think overall in the Nordic or Swedish or in Nordic field, we have a different know-how, and we are more in the digitalization space and so on. So I see more potential of it than risks. But also you need to think diversified also. It's not just buying companies. There are key factors behind it also, and I discussed some of them in EG7.
Yeah.
For example, you need to have people in the business that have incentive to create value. So, for example, in both Embracer, Stillfront, and EG7, they have people that own a lot of shares. So maybe that's one main reason to give incentive for creating share value.
Yeah, I heard Lars Wingefors, who's CEO of and founder of Embracer. He's talking about this principle that he wants a decentralized organization where the different pillars of his company they are autonomous in to a large degree.
Yeah.
But still they have the benefits that they have easy access to money and to advice and to publisher support or whatever you need, and they can work together. And so the big question, I guess, is there a size that is too big for this environment, or is it something could Embracer become bigger than Activision eventually? I think Lars would love it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good question. Lars has a different take on this M&A. He wants every company to just stand on their own. So in one part that is good because it gives them the opportunity to be creative. He gives you money to make those games, but maybe also a risk because what will be the synergies between all the companies that he has acquired? For example, if the recent acquisition of Gearbox, if this doesn't turn out good, maybe it would be better if it had been integrated in maybe other companies.
Why do you think that?
Because then you have more synergies. You can like share different sides of how to create value or something like that. So if you look at EG7, every company that comes in, they want to create synergies between them. So for Robin, it's really important that they integrate the companies.
So Robin is the CEO of EG7.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe do you think there is a difference between being a smaller company like Zordix or EG7 and being a large company like Embracer?
Yeah, of course, but Embracer was small also.
Yeah.
And Lars has been on this strict, like, yeah, if I buy you, I give you money, but you do your own business. There are other companies that have other perspectives on that, like Stillfront, EG7, and maybe Zordix also.
So what will the Zordix approach be here that will be different than EG7?
Yeah, I don't know quite yet. I think that it will be quite similar at the start. For example, the recent acquisition was physical distribution, and that was quite similar to Embracer with Koch Media and EG7 with Sold Out. And what's next? Yeah, we will see. But they have a strong focus on like off-road racing and adventure puzzles, horror games. So maybe in that area.
So before we dig deep into Zordix, could you just give us an overview of how far Zordix is on this journey? What companies have they bought, and how does that look compared to where EG7 was when we did the last video about EG7?
Yeah, They are quite at a similar pace right now than when we did the video in May 2020. They have started acquiring businesses. They have acquired 3 businesses right now. And the last one was a big physical distribution business in France. So at the time, EG7 had acquired 2 smaller developers and 1 bigger publisher in Sold Out and 1 bigger marketing platform in Petrol.
Yeah.
So quite similar. Yeah.
How about market cap in Zordix now compared to EG7 in May?
Zordix has right now with the recent acquisition around 900 million SEK in value. I think EG7 was around the same, maybe a little bit more, 1.1, 1.2.
Okay, so it makes sense that you want to try the same journey again. I get it. It sounds reasonable. Yeah. So let's dig into Zordix.
Okay. I will do a presentation right now about Zordix or the Zordix group. And I think it's time to talk more about Zordix after the recent acquisition of Just for Games. I will talk about that more later in the presentation. But Zordix, they are striving to be an international, fast-growing, entrepreneur-driven gaming group that wants to have the whole value chain. They want to develop, publish, and distribute games globally. So there are some segments we are going to discuss today. For example, we are going to talk about the corporate structure. We are going to talk about the studios and the interesting part of their M&A strategy. I will also talk about a little bit about the numbers and the valuation of the company right now. I will also talk about some predictions that I think maybe will come in the future. And I will also talk about risks. And short disclaimer, I own shares in Zordix. Yes, I does. So this presentation should not be a recommendation to buy shares in this company. I think it's really important you do your own due diligence.
Yeah, exactly. This is just your opinion, and people need to do their own due diligence, and that's it. Yeah.
Exactly. I like to start with some key points to invest. I will talk about them a little bit, and then I will come back to them later in the presentation. So I will come back to them and talk a little bit more. But from start, they have built and building an organization for expansion. They have taken a lot of time to build this organization. The IPO was in 2018, and this recent M&A strategy they have been focusing for in over 1 year now. So they have been quite quiet about this, and they have also focused on getting in the right people in the organization, and that I will also talk about later. They have a lot of incentive from the board to achieve value for investors. A lot of the board has a lot of shares in the company, and I think it's an incentive to join in the start of the trip, because there are some key elements when you join early in the group. For example, stock shares, earnouts, and so on. They have an active M&A strategy, and they will be very active this year, they have said. and they want to create a platform, and they are just in the start right now. They have with the recent acquisition, they have gotten institutional support. I will talk more about that later. And in their business, they have right now 3 internal games in production. Of course, every company has a vision. I like visions, but you should maybe more focus on the goals. So our vision has been upgraded to make Zordix a world-leading group of game developers and publishers for main consoles and PCs. I think that's really, really good. But for my main perspective, as always, as a investor, I want to make money. And I don't think Zordix is what do you say? They don't need to be a world-leading group to become a good investment. Yeah. So purpose is to grow more and larger and do large acquisition and so forth.
Yeah, it's something always to remember. I think for investors that are not familiar with the gaming industry, that sort of if something is a good investment, it depends on how much revenue you have and how large a cost base you have per unit you sell or per game you make. So you can make a really good business out of selling, out of not selling AAA titles, but selling just smaller games if you get that equation right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you talk about more about the corporate structure, there are some key people in Zordix that I want to talk more about. First of all, we have the CEO. He's in the second place here in the presentation, Matti. He has been in this space for over 20 years, and this is his time to shine. I don't think Matti would have done this himself, this growth journey they are going to do. So therefore, he needs good people around. And for example, one is David Wallsten. I know him personally, and is a really, really good private investor, and he's also a good company builder. He is CEO of Dimfrost. Dimfrost is one of the companies in this family, and they are based in Norrköping. I will talk more about them later.
So, so Matti, what kind of a guy is he, and why is he doing this?
Well, I think it's he's rooted in Umeå. Umeå is a place in Norrland, and maybe it has been quite hard to do something big in that city. So with the IPO, I think he saw an opportunity in this gaming segment. It's in its hype. So yeah, I think I like him, but I think he needs good people around him. Yeah.
What are his sort of strengths? Is he a nerd, or is he
he's
a good people's man?
He's a good people's man, but he's also he's a nerd. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And also we have Peter Dabusi. He is CFO of the company. He joined now in January, and he has contributed a lot in this short time. He was one main part, key part to close the recent deal with Just for Games. And he comes from Universal Avenue and before of that, he was in Strassel, and he has an expertise in M&A. One that I also like that's in the board, I don't know why he is, but that's really interesting. That's Stefan Lampinen. And I think maybe everyone knows him if you're really deep in this gaming business. There's a lot of people who says he's a founding father of the Swedish gaming industry. He's a gaming advisor, and he started, I don't know how far ago, but he has been, for example, he started in Sega, where he launched Sega Mega Drive. He built up EA in Nordic. He has all been in Microsoft, where he launched Xbox 360. So, and a lot of Japanese, the biggest company he has helped build them. He is a board member in Zordix, and I think that's really interesting to see what he can make for Zordix. I know that he have a lot of contacts in Europe and overall in the world. So maybe he will hopefully get some good acquisitions for Zordix. And then also Malin, chairman of the board, she has also built companies and so on. So I think overall this is a good key people for this business, and I think they have come far more than EG7 had at that point when we talked last year.
What do you mean far more further? In which way are they more mature or further ahead?
More experienced. If you look at Robin and Alexander in EG7, they had not so far of experience, so they were more reliable of other experts in that space. Now now Zordix has it in the business, and also they have a new COO, and he has been in the board since 2018, and also a really good private investor and the CFO of Rakitesh, for example, in the iGaming space. He has become a new board member and wants to strive for building a success.
How big a part of your decision to invest in a company like this is sort of the crew on it? If two of these had been someone else, would you have shied away from investing?
I think so. I have done a few mistakes before. For example, when I bought Starbreeze, I didn't know anything about the corporate structure. And also, I made a mistake in buying Funcom that I thought was a really great company, but they had not incentive to create shareholder value. They didn't own a lot of shares in the company, and so I think it's really, really important to look at the key people in the business that you are investing in. Look for their experience, look for their shares in the company. I think it's really, really important.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And also the entrepreneurs of acquisitions, also Philip Cohen and Thomas Kozak. I will talk a little bit more about them soon. And just to highlight more of these key people in the business is, of course, their shares in the company and also their votes. So before the recent acquisition of Just for Games, they had like 70% of the votes, and therefore they are entitled to do a lot of strategy decisions. For example, Matti Larsson, he is the CEO of Zordix. He has the most shares in the company, and he is on the lockdown right now of the recent share issue. In the third place, you have David Wallsten, who is CEO of the Infost. Erste Group Bank is Tamas Kozak, and he is CEO of Invictus Games. And then you have the new board member of Patrik Bloch. He is becoming the new board member in Mars. You have also Malin Jonsson, chairman of the board, and you have Peter Dabusi, the CFO. And also in the last directed share issue with the recent acquisition, they have also gotten institutional support from the consortia of Sten Olsson with Erik Nilsson. They went in early in Embracer, and they was the first to invest in EG7 of the funds. You have also FE Fonder, Knutsson Holdings, and Prioritet Finans, and they have also been early in like Embracer or Steelfront and EG7. And also,
I guess the hub thing here really shines, that the investors and the teams, and they've done this before. They've been in this environment for a long time. So
yeah, exactly. They have also created that know-how in the business, and of course they want to make money of this trend. I think it's a trend, this M&A, but I think it's sustainable, and the investors see that this also. And I think it's quite unique that this institutional support has invested in Zordix in this early stage, because they are not listed on First North. They are listed on NGM, and this is a smaller list, and it's always an ethical dilemma for these funds or institutional support to invest in these companies. So this is a really good job for Zordix that they have gotten this support. And also maybe the risk management you can always discuss from the institutional side. They I don't know. What do you think?
yeah, I think that there is a lot of resources, there is a lot of know-how. So if you've done something a few times and done it successfully, I think it makes sense that they should be the ones that should do it again. So, but on the other hand, maybe I'm just thinking maybe you get reckless if you just every time you do this it turns to gold, then maybe you just think I'll just do it again, and not really be as focused and as dedicated as you were the last time or the time before. But yeah, I don't know, but it's a new team on Zordix, and they're probably hungry. So
yeah, exactly. From what I've heard, it's mainly Patrik Bloch, who is a private investor who has managed to get this institutional support. But this shows this owners list that, yeah, if you look at the owners list, maybe you see that there is some incentive to create share value. If you look at the studios in Zordix, there are a few right now. I will talk a little bit more about them. First of all, you have Zordix Games in Umeå, where they also have their racing and publishing arm. They have a really small publishing arm. They released a few titles now in Q4, and I think they didn't sold well, but this was minor investments, maybe 500 to 1 million SEK per title. The Zordix Games, they are focusing on off-road racing games. So they have produced like snow racer games and also a game called Overpass that I did a work for hire for a big company in France called Nacon, but at the time they called Big Ben Interactive. And also they have set up a business in Stockholm right now. That's new. That are focusing on M&A. I think there are like 3 people there now, right now, and are doing expansion there. So this will be like the hub for the M&A and the business development. But they are also acquiring some key managers in Umeå. I will talk more about that later. Dimfrost Studio, they were acquired in late November. Talk about them more soon. Invictus Games acquired last year in 2020, and the recent acquisition Just for Games. In these studios, for example, in Zordix Racing, Invictus Games, and Dimfrost Studio, they are right now developing 3 AA games.
So what's an AA game?
Yeah, I don't know really the definition of it, but maybe a budget between 10 and 50 million SEK.
And what would the so if you make a cheaper game, you won't get these massive consumer or user numbers. So is it a niche game, or what's sort of the strategy if you want to make a less good game and earn money on it anyway?
Yeah, of course it's a niche game, yeah. And they are targeting, for example, in Zordix Racing, they are developing a game called Project Thunder. We don't know so much about it, but it's in the off-road space, off-road racing space. So, yeah, exactly. In this case, yeah, if you like racing, maybe you buy it. But if you don't like racing, you don't buy it. So, but if you talk about the recent hype game Valheim, if you've heard it. Yeah. So they're 4 or 5 man studio, and they have sold 4 million copies in 3 weeks or something. So there you can discuss if that's an AAA game because it has sold so well. But if when you talk about AA products, it's a smaller budget.
Yeah, it's there's this secret ingredients always in gaming that some games, even hyper casual games, just get massive sometimes, and sometimes big games are not really fun to play. So it's I guess it's a shorter path or a cheaper path to see whether your game loop is selling or is something that is engaging people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What would you say that makes Zordix different than, for instance, Codemasters that has the Dirt game and these racing games?
Well, first of all, Codemasters is a lot bigger and has bigger projects than Zordix in Umeå. I think there are maybe around 20 or 25 developers. They made actually a game called Overpass for Nacon, which was a work for hire. But when you do a work for hire game, there are always some other part that are making the decisions for what type of game you are going to develop. So this is the first time with Project Thunder that they are developing an own game in this space. So and we don't know anything about the game more than it has new technology, as it has a multiplayer function, and it is for the next gen consoles. So when we see more, maybe it's in the code master space of Dirt. I don't know yet.
Cool. There is an interesting point about this that when you're, I don't know when this is coming out, but usually racing games is something that is very good in early in a console cycle, because it'll really be one of the game types where you can really feel that you're on a new console that has better graphics and better CPU and stuff.
Yeah, of course. And also they have also the new technology. They have an university in Umeå, so they have a lot of development in AI, for example. So it will be interesting to see if they can implement something of that is like new for the players and for the next gen consoles. If you talk about Invictus Games, they are a Hungarian company. They have been around for 20 years, mainly focusing on work for hire, smaller mobile games, and so on. This was a small acquisition, maybe 10 million SEK, and they had around 20-30 people. So it's mainly acquiring developers. So they are shifting the focus now, and has been, to make PC and console games again. And it's also interesting, or sad in one part, in the same city there was this company called Denali Games, and they had closure last year. So I think almost 10-15 people of that company is in Invictus right now. So there's a lot of manpower there, and they are also developing an unannounced project, which also are in this racing space. We don't know anything yet about it, but it's labeled as an AA project also. And Invictus Games has done work for hire also, so they know their space also, but hasn't really been showing what they're capable of, if you put it out like that. But 10 million SEK acquisition, I don't think, maybe if you would, I don't think you can have some high expectation, because they are mainly bought it because of the manpower. But it will be really interesting if they can put out a good game. And then we have Dimfost. Dimfost, they acquired in November 2019, and they are headquartered in Norrköping in Sweden. And they have also strong expertise in AI. They have several developers that have achieved award for it. I think they are around 5 to 8 people now, and they are developing a really, really interesting project called Bramble the Mountain King. And I really like the setting of this game. because it's about this hundreds of years old Nordic folklore. I know you are a Danish, so you are familiar with maybe Necken or something.
No, no,
Not Necken, no. But
no.
maybe the trolls and the nightmare, Nattmyra, and so on.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is mainly for the Swedish. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's
My mom
mainly
didn't read it for
maybe
me.
Sweden, Norway, and so on. But
Yeah.
it's it's like a strong narrative. If you look at the picture, is quite more about the adventure puzzle horror game. And this is quite interesting because I played it in Gamescom back in 2018, and the game was in the Epic space there. So David Wallsten, as I said before, who is the CEO of Dimfost, he promoted the game at Epic, and after that, Zordix acquired the company, and they have a close collaboration with Epic. And I'm not surprised if there will be an Epic exclusive deal there.
And that will be quite huge, because that means that the publisher, or Epic the distributor will take a smaller share of the profits. So that can really mean a lot for a company. The Finnish company, what's it called, that has just I think it's quadrupled over the last year since they became an Epic exclusive.
Remedy, you mean?
Remedy, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Control.
You have the same revenue, but suddenly you get the double bottom line because of an Epic exclusive.
Yeah. Well, it's only my own prediction, so I don't know, but I know that they have a close collaboration, and they have already gotten the Epic Mega Grant from them, and they so we will see, but it's a really interesting project. And
so one of the things that I sit here and listen to is optionality. How many pieces of this company can sort of make something really interesting happen? And this is really one that's quite likely, given what you just said, and that will really make a difference on the way that investors do their calculations. And
of course, you want a company to make a success, and also quite early in this trip. So I really hope that one of these three projects will become a success, because it, as you said, it's easier to show investors what they have done. And in the recent report that was reported today, they said also that this three project has the potential to expand with external partners to get that extra fund also. So Zordix is right now quite small, and they have so maybe they are looking for external partners right now, but maybe that will shift focus also with the future acquisitions. I don't know. Both, for example, Bramble and Project Thunder are calculated to launch next year, so that's time left. But also with this Nordic folklore, there is a huge space in this. So if they succeed with this IP, they can do follow-ups. They can brand it with merch and all of that, videos and so on. one person that is invested in Dimfrost is, for example, Fredrik Malmberg. He owns, for example, the Conan IP. Maybe it would come something out from there. I don't know. Yeah, in this month, they acquired Just for Games. It's an France or Paris located company. And this is definitely a transformative acquisition. And I will talk more about why. I wrote this: unsexy business for private investors, but mainly the revenue of this company is from physical distribution, but this is a cash flow driven company that has made 33% since inception in 2011. So physical distribution, yeah, it's unsexy for me who wants to invest in companies, but for institutional, they really like this because this is a steady business. It has good cash flow and it is diversified. Just for Games is really big game distributor in France. So they distribute a lot of games and they have a big back catalog. So this is I think it's a really good start for Zordix because now they have this risk management and they are diversified with this business.
So Hans, when they buy a company like this, what do they pay with? Do they pay with cash or do they pay with shares? Or
yes, so the acquisition was 40 million euro, and around 4.75 million euro was in shares. So when we looked at the owners list, you saw that Philip Cohen had around 2.44 million shares. That's the 4.75 million euro in shares. And also they have a lockup in 18 months, and they have also an earnout. So there are a lot of incentive to strive for growth in this family.
okay, but then around 36 million euro in cash.
40 million, around 9 million was in 9 million euro was in cash.
Oh, 14
yeah,
million
14,
euro.
yeah. So
okay.
9 million euro was in cash, and
Okay.
that was the last directed share issue.
So when at that price, what kind of EV/EBIT level did they acquire Just for Games on?
Yeah, I will show you that, but I will just talk about the business model first. So I said mainly physical distribution, so around 90% of physical distribution, and they have initiated investment in own IPs. So for example, a title called Instant Sports on Switch has sold a couple of 100,000 copies. So around 10% is their publishing, and they want, of course, it to raise. I think it raised around 430% last year, but from low numbers. So to answer your question, they bought it for 40 million euro, but they have annual revenue of around 30 million euro with an EBIT of 4 million euro. So it was kind of good acquisition if you look at the numbers.
yeah, kind of good. Yeah, that's an understatement, I guess.
Yeah, of course there are an earnout, But that's based on, I don't know the criteria, but it's like 4 years, so they can get more shares every year if they grow their business. But then you need to think that they have grown 33% every year since inception. So if they continue to do that, it will pay off anyway, I think.
Why do they sell at that price? Is that what a publisher is worth these days?
I think it's definitely one part is that it is a physical distribution platform. It's kind of maybe unsexy, I don't know, as I said before, but also they are, maybe they see the opportunity to come in early in a group.
Yeah, makes sense.
So for example, the share, the stocks they've gotten, 4.75 million euro in shares. They did a directed share issue for 20 SEK, and they got their shares for 20 SEK. Now the share is around 36. So that is one of the incentive to come in early. Just look for example in EG7, the first acquisition of Sold Out and Petrol, where they paid almost everything in shares, and that was around maybe 20 SEK. Now EG7 are in over 100. So that's I think they see that incentive also just for games, or Philip Cohen, to come in early, and they get shares, and also they have the potential to get earnout.
Do these just for games? Do they come with any IP, or is it
Yeah,
pure
they
distribution?
mainly pure distribution. They had, like I said before, this IP called Instant Sports.
Oh.
It's a title, sport title for Switch, but they are striving to also grow in own IP, and maybe that's also a case in why they want to come in, because now they are getting more money to grow the business. And if you just look at the French market, as they still value physical copies. Here in Sweden, we have this digitalization, but in other parts of the world, it's not the case. So for example, 71 people plays video games in France compared to 71 in other European markets. And of them, 55% buys in store.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that physical distribution is coming back, because GameStop just rose 100% yesterday. So and I think it's skyrocketing
Exactly.
again.
Yeah, I saw on Twitter that someone said that, oh my God, Zordix is buying GameStop business in France. But I think this is a sustainable business, and they are in the premium business market also now for the next gen console. So I think we can see a really good growth now in 2021. And yeah, of course, there are synergies within this group. This is from the first 3 points here. It's from their own presentation. So you become part of a global development strategy. You get the market expertise. For example, when Zordix is going to release their games, the internal games on physical formats, who do they choose? Just for games. They have an international distribution network. They are working with all the biggest developers or companies, so that's also good. And they have a steady cash flow. Yes. And also their M&A strategy. So they are striving for building a powerhouse, or what you said before, an alchemy, together with an expansion of own IPs. There was an interview with Matti, the CEO, back in October, with another share issue, and where he said in the video, if it goes the way I want, we will launch 100 games next year. And before that he said, before we launched one, now maybe we have 10 in development, and next year maybe we have 100. And I was what did he say now? Is this is this doable? But they started good with Just for Games, and Just for Games is launching a lot of titles in their distribution platform. And they will continue acquiring publishers, distributors, and IP holders, so they can own the whole value chain. So there is a lot of left to do. There is a lot of do in the platform building right now. They are in the start, so I think they will acquire more developers and publishers in this space. As I said before, they have a solid M&A team with different experience. For example, Peter, he has an M&A experience from before. I saw on LinkedIn that they hired an M&A associate in Stockholm for 3 weeks ago, and now I know that that position is filled. So that's really, it's quite cool that it goes so fast to hire people. It shows that Zordix is one company to count for. Stefan Lampinen, as I told before, the founding father, he is key expertise in building companies. And Patrik Bloch, he's a great expertise in finding investors, and that we saw in the recent share issue. And also Patrik Wallsten, who is a really good company builder. If you look at the presentation or the picture at the right, this is from a presentation in June. So that is what Zordix is looking for. And acquisition 3, it's Just for Games. And they have said this year that M&A will be very active. So hopefully we will see more acquisitions.
How much cash do they have now? Do they have the cash for the next acquisition, or are they going to?
No, they need to make more directed share issues. They have around 40 million SEK in their cash right now. So they are strongly dependent on getting capital.
Yes, but just like with EG7, we know that they have the fund support right now, so everybody's keen of building something big now here.
And that is something I can discuss the difference between Zordix and EG7 when they were at where Zordix are now. EG7 took an obligation loan for 500 million SEK to make the acquisitions of Sold Out and Petrol, because they didn't have the institutional support. So they needed to show what they can do, and after that, they got the institutional support. Zordix, they already got the institutional support now. So they don't need to rely on a loan with high rent. But it was also smart for EG7 because now they have raised capital to solve that loan. So there are, you can build your companies in different ways, but I think it's overall really good to do it with institutional support. Some numbers and valuation of Zordix. Zordix has mainly been focusing on building and talking about a story. You know that, yeah, what do we need to do to create a success? Yeah, we need to talk about what we are going to do. So mainly before, Zordix was a work for hire company, and they stopped with all of that and started developing these 3 internal titles. So if you look before the acquisition of Just for Games, they had an stock value of like around 500 million SEK, and they had revenue of 9 million. So the PS was at 57. That's really, really high. And the EV/EBIT was 105. So there were some expectations that Zordix needed to do acquisitions and so on. And after that, they did this Just for Games. And I think that was really a transformative. Now they have around 900 million SEK in share value, but the revenue in pro forma now is 340 million SEK. And the PS is under 3, and EV/EBIT is 21.
It's really. I'm just sitting here and thinking about how impossible valuation is, because this really shows that distribution is really very different than developing. So on the one side, it's a company that is spending on developing for future earnings, future revenues, and they don't have much revenues now. And on the other hand, they mix with a company that has a sort of a low gross margin on their revenues. We don't know about that on the sort of the games developers part, but if their games become successful, they'll have a lower or a higher gross margin on their revenues if you take it over time. So it's just 2 really different business models, and you mix it up together, and then you sort of have to figure out how much is this worth. And it's
exactly. So you
can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do that. And yeah, exactly. Physical distribution. Yeah, maybe it's not worth so much, but in a group and later on, it will be worth more, I think. And
yeah, definitely, it's a good combination.
Yeah.
One is cash flow for the development, so you have access to cash, and you sort of have a security. You don't need to fund anything until you have to, or until you see the right thing, and you can go and take in money. So it's a good combi. I know that from C Limited, where Garena was funding Shopee, that was just developing and growing. So yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah, exactly. And it's easier for them now to make maybe acquisition with more value for maybe investors or something. They can acquire developers and that has good IPs also. Because
I'm sorry, Yeah, go ahead, Hans. Sorry.
Because now they have the institutional support, and I think investors need to see an acquisition or like a transformative acquisition, and that was Just for Games.
Yeah. I'm thinking that I remember when you pitched EG7, I was like, there's nothing really here that makes money, and we need some games to be successful and stuff. So this looks a little bit more appealing, I think, because you have the cash flow to fund going forward internally.
Yeah, exactly. EG7 is also it was also a storytelling. Yeah, but if you look at the recent acquisitions the EG7 has done, they are yeah, it's mind blowing. it's far it's far more than I thought it would be. I mean, they bought Daybreak for 3 billion, and today they bought a Asian company for 1 billion. So it shows that you can really build a business.
Yeah.
And they did it with these kind of acquisitions. For example, they, yeah, like I told before, they both sold out, where mainly was also physical distribution. And now they are building more and more pieces. And I think Zordix will do the same. So a little bit recap of the key points to invest that I talked about early in the presentation. I said that they have built their organization for a long time, and now they are taking the next step. So, for example, in Umeå, they are looking for a marketing manager, group executive producer, community manager, and VP business development sales. And in Stockholm, they have recently hired the M&A associate, but also an accounting manager. And the accounting manager also is quite interesting because hopefully they are changing list to First North. I think it's also, as I said before, the incentive from the board. They want to achieve value for investors. And as of 31st of December, they own 45% of the capital and the 70% of the votes. And I think you need to, this is one key element to buy a share in a company. You need to look at the owners list. And also this incentive to join early in the trip. For example, that I told before about Sold Out and Petrol in EG7, and also Just for Games now here. It's really, really good for them to come in early. They get shares and they get earnout. So they will definitely wanting to strive to grow their business, and they get paid for it also.
Yeah, that's one of the key points that people are making against the Embracer model, that if you're a small company and you come into the Embracer group, you can't really move anything. You're just your incentives to sort of kick ass was just the word that I fill in. It's much bigger when you're a tenth of a group or a fifth of a group than if you're a less than 1% of a group.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe it's easier for a smaller company to maybe it doesn't matter if you come in this point in Embracer right now, because you don't get the shares. Maybe you get 0.01 in shares, but in other parts they get maybe the financial support to do what they want to do. But I think if you want to invest in company like Zordix, or where EG7 was last year, the incentive for the value for the investors is of course to look at this, that the company they are acquiring will get on this early trip and make value of it. And also, as I said before, this new institutional support, and they has deep pockets. They have invested heavily, like this Stena Consortia. They have invested heavily, for example, in EG7, and I think they will do the same in Zordix also. So I don't think they will have a problem to raise capital in the future, but they need to do a stock change to First North because of the ethical dilemma. So maybe that creates more funds to invest. Maybe TIN, Ny Technique, and other banks.
So what is it that you call the ethical dilemma?
I don't know exactly what it is, but a company needs to be in a certain way. So for them, they think it's a more risk to invest in a company that's are on a smaller list. So therefore, they don't buy them. So they need to make a stock change to First North, for example, to get other institutional support.
Yeah, it can be something about the mandate from in the funds, which stocks they can invest in.
Yeah, or the accounting principle, or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
And the games in production, for example, Bramble. I think it's has a really good. I think it can be a really good game.
Was it fun? What was it? What you played the game?
Yeah, I played it on Gamescom. Yeah, it was really fun. I thought it was hard, but it was a prototype also. So from what I've heard, they have done good progress with the game, and it's quite different from what it was back in 2018. But look at the trailer. I think it's really cool. I also wrote this different perspective because of bigger M&A transactions soon. So they have these 3 internal AA games, with maybe 10 to 40 million SEK in budget. But what happens with the focus on this when from an investor perspective, if they do even bigger transactions later on? It's the same with EG7. They bought, for example, Daybreak Games. So no, I don't focus so much on their minor titles that they are developing, because focus have shifts on bigger IPs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's this alchemy thing that once you have a share price that is higher than the companies that you are buying, then you can buy them. You buy with cash, and immediately it gets worth more, and your stock rises, and then you can raise more money.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
also I think it's also a what it gets going because it gets going, and because people expect it to get going. So I think maybe it will be a strength for Zordix that Embracer has done it, Stillfront has done it, now EG7 has done it. So everybody expects an acquisition to be positive for the company. So that should lead to a high share price. You might even expect just a card house that is being built just by this, then we just need to hop off one time. But yeah, I think it makes sense that it's very much in the story. The story is very important.
Yeah, the story important, and I really hope that they are getting this success with these titles. But if it goes that I want, I think the perspective of these games will shift in focus in the future.
Yeah, and something that we talked about last time is also that if you're a small studio in Hungary and you got one game or something, you're really relying on that game to be a success. If it's not, then you're out of business, and
Yeah, exactly.
and you might be forced to release it before it's finished because you're out of money. So for a small studio to diversify the risk and to have access to funds and also to have access to other people to get help from when you need it and be a part of a group. So it's very good in many ways. So it makes sense that the studios are cheap when you buy them because they're very risky and not that well functioning by themselves. But when they get into the group, they become worth more because they will more likely reach their full potential.
Exactly. And maybe more funds to deliver that game that they want to do. And it's also, from what I've heard from this space, so they said that it was really good that Zordix acquired this business with just for games, because it's lower risk than rather than start with a developer, because that's a higher risk if you invest in a developer that are developing maybe one or two titles and then it flops. So it's better to start with the platform to get this type of businesses integrated, and then you get the share price higher, and then you get the institutional support, and then you have more funds to maybe look at these developers that has lower risk.
I also think for me, it's just the story is being told the same way. So you start with a couple of game studios, then you buy a publisher, and then you buy some more game studios. We've seen that with Embracer and EG7, and so it kind of makes me think, oh, well, this is going exactly the same way. So I guess you need to be a little bit careful not to get carried away. You might end up with sort of 90% of your portfolio and
yeah you can always discuss my risk management.
No, I was actually going to ask you in your mind, so no, I'll start another way to deleverage the risk that I ask you to take by giving your opinion here. I think that a lot of investors are leaving value on the table because they don't give their best guess at first. So I think a lot of people is always talking about underestimating what they think of a company. But I think it's very important that you sort of assess the odds or the risk the right way, and then you can put in some security factors. So with all that said, I'm trying to get you to give us your best guess on what are the odds that Zordix will succeed with this project.
Yeah.
And maybe some more ranges. What are the odds that they will fail? And what are the odds that they will do a moonshot? And what are the odds that they will just do an EG7?
Yeah, exactly. Well, first of all, there is a discussion where a lot of people say that Okay, they are copying Embracer. Okay, they are copying Steelfront. They have done it. I don't think another company can do it. But I think it's the opposite, because Zordix and EG7, they have seen that Starbreeze, they failed. They bought companies with no revenue or negative cash flow. They have seen Embracer, they have seen Steelfront, that are acquiring game companies with steady cash flow. So with that in mind, I think it's easier to success now, because this is a trend. M&A is a trend, and there is a lot of capital that wants to come in. So therefore, it's easier for these companies to do this trip. And I think I think Sodic will do it also. I'm quite comfortable that they now, after the Just for Games acquisition and the institutional support, that they have no problem to do bigger acquisitions in this year.
So, what are the odds of a failure, and what are the odds of an EG7, and what are the odds of something better?
Well, first of all, you need to think, okay, how long will this trend last? How long do you think it will last? How long do you think this capital flow in will last? And then you can see the picture, like, okay, how far will Zordix goes? The biggest risk for Zordix right now is that if investors say, institutional support are saying, no, we don't want to put in more money, because then they can't do their trip. Then they can just focus on these 3A games and get maybe external partners for that. So therefore, they can't grow their business in that pace that they want. So, but I don't think. I think this consolidation in the gaming sector will still going on for at least 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, because it's creating value.
Yeah.
So do you think that a success like EG7 is more likely than 50%?
Yeah, of course. I think that. Yeah.
Do you think it's more likely than 75%?
What do you mean as success? Do you mean like Embracer success?
Yeah, I mean like EG7 success.
Do you mean Zordix will become EG7 success?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Zordix will do better than EG7.
Yeah, and just yeah, that makes sense. I think we've been around it. I also sit here with this same sensation that this seems more complete, the team, and
the team is more complete, and they have taken the time to build this organization. So now they are starting to put the pieces together, and as I said, it's unique to get this institutional support so soon. So why wouldn't they not succeed?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, if you we can maybe talk about risks now instead, because we was in that space. But of course, internal games, yeah, if they doesn't deliver, it's always a risk. But as I said before, what are the risks for these internal games in 1 or 2 years? Maybe the focus are somewhere else. If they don't do more acquisitions and the internal games flops, yeah, then it's over for Zordix maybe. And also this, that I talked about before, stop of capital, yeah, then they can't buy companies. And also, if there are a company who says, no, we don't want to join Zordix, but yeah, this is maybe the biggest risk from my point of view. But as it seems like now, I don't see the risks are that high.
So why would a company, a game studio, why would they choose Zordix compared to EG7 or compared to Embracer? We've been around size, but I'm thinking about, is there something special about that, the CEO, or is there what?
Well, I think overall it's a good time for businesses to come into other businesses. These entrepreneurs, they have driven these company for a long time, and maybe now they see that this is the time to sell the company, but also coming into a larger group to do more stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess sort of what is the CEO, was he Matti?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does he have to offer as a person? I think his team is well described. They have the competences that you would want. But
Yeah,
what
exactly.
about the CEO? What is he like?
Well, CEO, he is a CEO that wants everyone to like what they are doing and focus on their creative side. He's really kind, and he is also a nerd. I've talked to him personally, and he is a really good programmer. So I think, yeah, in this M&A situation, to join Zordix, I think it's mainly to come in a larger group and to become larger. So I don't know if it just I don't like to talk only about the CEO. I want to more talk about the whole team, because see, the CEO of course is important, but he's only one in this group. You know what I is coming for?
Yeah.
So from my point of view, it's more relevant to focus on the whole team, what they can do for these entrepreneurs who are coming in, not only the CEO.
Cool. So
Yes.
I think we've sort of been around everything. Is there something that we haven't worked around?
Yeah. So just some predictions for the future. This is maybe the last thing of the presentation. So I hope for a stock change to First North, and I think they will do around 1 to 4 more acquisitions this year, and I really hope for maybe one more publisher or one more developer, or both in one acquisition. And if they are making more of these acquisition, I can't see that they are going to be less than 600 million SEK in pro forma for 2021. But it's heavily depending on what type of acquisition they are going to do. And yeah, this year lays ground for expansion in 2022. So as also Matti has said before, this growth journey has just begun.
Very cool and very interesting. It's really, yes. Yeah, it makes one think. it seems, yeah, it seems complete, like we just talked about. That's really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
well,
think.
I think it's well, it's quite similar to EG7, but in other perspective, it's not. But this is a really cool trend, this M&A situation, and I know there is a lot of discussions if it's sustainable or not, and that we will see in the future, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I think that was fantastic. Hans, where can people find you if they have any questions or anything?
Yes, of course. I'm on Twitter, so you can write to me. My name there is Antzzo, or with 2Z, or Antzzo Invest. I'm also at Discord in the most channels discussing shares and so on.
Nice.
Yes.
So this was fantastic, Hans. I have one request for you, and that is
Yes.
next time you find one of these small companies, could you please contact me half a year before?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, of course I will do that.
Very cool. So thanks a lot. I know the last video eventually got more and more popular and more views, and
Yeah,
yeah,
you got more viewers now, so maybe more will.
yeah, it's fantastic that you wanted to share it. And to you listeners or viewers, you should remember that this was just Hans's take on Zordix. So do your own due diligence and make your own investment decisions. So thanks a lot again, Hans, and good luck with your investments out there.